Welcome to the Welcome to the Unitarian Universalist congregation at Montclair. My name is Marcus Gray Hauk. My pronouns are he, him, and his, and I serve as the Director of Music Ministries for this congregation. And this congregation, you, our members, are all watching us, if you're watching, virtually. There's nobody here in the building today except for the tech crew, the liturgist, the minister, and the musicians. Because our reopening implementation team, ROIT, has determined that this would be a good way. At the moment, it's a good time for us to not be here present to flatten the curve of the spread of COVID. And we might be back in person next Sunday, but we're going to meet this week and look at the data and determine what is the best way going forward. So stay tuned and check your emails for that information. I'm joined today by Mike Gilch on the piano, Glenn Rombo on guitar, and also leading hymns. And with him is Susie Roman Luna. And we're going to begin with I Know I Can, a song that reminds us of our strength and the courage it takes to keep going in the face of adversity.
Wade in the water, children, wade. gonna trouble the water. It looks like a man that Moses led. God's gonna trouble the water. Wading in the water. Wading in the water. Children, wade in the water. God's gonna trouble the water. God's gonna trouble the water. God's gonna trouble the water.
Whoever you are, wherever you come from, whatever age, ability, history, identity, gender, or sexual orientation, you are welcome to bring your full self here.
We are Dana and Samara Moore. Our pronouns are she, her, and hers.
Grounded in faith, we come together to nurture the soul, inspire hope, and bring into being a more just and loving world.
Today's service, Been to the Mountaintop, honors the legacy and conviction of civil rights advocacy embodied in the person of the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King, Jr. Dr. King exclaimed in his last speech before he was murdered that he had been to the mountaintop and seen the promised land. Too often, honorifics of King's legacy stall in reverence and fail to catalyze a movement. Our work in today's service is to climb to the mountaintop that Dr. King ascended, so we too might be convicted by a vision that demands just, steady, and righteous action. Please see your This Week at UUCM bulletin, which was shared with the announcement for today's service, for many important announcements, including the registration for this year's Montclair Interfaith Martin Luther King Day celebration, which will take place virtually today at 11 a.m. Registration is required and the link is included. We encourage virtual attendees to post the link in the chat on Facebook and YouTube to ensure that all have a chance to attend.
Now we welcome Wendy McNeil for an invitation to an upcoming Undoing Racism education event for reparations.
My name is Wendy McNeil, and my pronouns are she, her, and hers. Now, I consider myself a pretty woke person. I'm always au courant on issues, especially issues around injustice. But for some reason, I didn't know or frankly care about reparations until pretty late in the game. And it happened because I went to a place that I now call Nirvana, also known as Sedona, Arizona. And before I traveled the 2 hours from Phoenix to Sedona, I stopped at the Heard Museum of Native American Art, and I saw a video in which a native spoke about the check, the monthly check that they were receiving. And I thought, aha, this is reparations. And then when I came home from Sedona, I started looking it up, investigating a little bit more, and I saw that the US government has a history of giving to groups of people for what it deems historical injustices. So the Japanese Americans, for example, receive reparations for having been in the internment camps. And some Native tribes receive reparations for the lands that were taken away from them. I want my check. And I want my check because my father, who honorably served in World War II, who is buried in a military cemetery, was not allowed, because of the color of his skin, to have full access to the GI Bill. I want my check because every time my parents went looking for a house, they were told that the property was either under contract or had already been sold. I want my check. I want my check because while I was raised in the great state of New Jersey that is known for being so progressive, so blue, we have one of the highest Black maternal and infant mortality rate in the country, and one of the largest wealth gaps between Black and white people, and we have one of the most segregated school systems in the country. I want my check. So when I came back from Sedona, and I was so happy to learn that this congregation, the Social Justice Committee, was also very concerned about reparations. And I was asked by Annalise to become the chair of the education team for the Undoing Racism Committee, and we decided to do an education event on reparations. And I'm very pleased to say that that event is going to take place on March 2nd, 2022, Zoom, beginning at 7 o'clock. And we already have 2 speakers confirmed. One of them is our very own Dion Ford, who's going to serve as the moderator. On Thursday night, I attended a virtual meeting that had Charles Boyer in it, the Reverend Charles Boyer. And he said, we can't dream ourselves to justice, we must act. And this is a way for us in this congregation to act, to learn more about reparations, and to see why it is so important. Thank you.
Ours is a covenantal community, and we share a common covenant, a commitment to come together in service to the beloved community.
Let's light our chalice as our chalice lighting affirmation is shared. Let us open our senses to take in the beauty. Let us open our minds to learn what is true, and let us open our hearts to love one another.
Thank you so much, Samara. It is great to share in leading worship with you. And also your mom, Dana, it is great to work with you as well. And here is our time for all ages. By the way, I'm the Reverend Anya Sammler-Michael, she, her, hers. And we travel for our time for all ages, into the desert, into the wilderness. We are walking, we are struggling, we are surviving with a tired people who have been wandering for a long time in search of a home. These people in the desert, they are the Israelites, the Hebrew people. Their leader was Moses. You may have heard of Moses. He struck a rock and brought forth water. He stood before a bush, and the bush burned with a flame of a righteous God. He had led the Hebrew people out of bondage, reluctantly at times, but with great dedication at others. He had been with them as one of the Israelites put their foot into the Red Sea, and the Red Sea parted. And he had walked with them for years in the wilderness, knowing that even if he glimpsed the promised land, he would not set foot in it. Why? There are many answers. Perhaps the clearest is that some struggles are generational. Some of the work we do to change the world demands generations of convicted, committed leaders. So Moses glimpsed the promised land, but he could not enter. He did not make it all the way there, but his assistant, Joshua, Yeshua, a name which means God is deliverance, does. Joshua, who assisted Moses, is the one who will enter the promised land. What pressure, what challenge to inherit the work, to be the assistant all those years, and then be faced with leading the people into the land that they had been praying for. Here is how the Holy Scriptures, the words written to reveal the struggles of the faith of the Hebrew people, speak about Yeshua's preparation. After Moses, the Lord's servant died. The Lord spoke to Joshua.
Moses, my servant, is dead. Get ready. Cross the Jordan River. Lead these people into the land which I am ready to hand over to them. I am handing over to you every place you step foot, as I promised Moses. Your territory will extend from the wilderness in the south to Lebanon in the north. It will extend all the way to the great river Euphrates in the east and all the way to the Mediterranean Sea in the west. No one will be able to resist you all the days of your life. As I was with Moses, so I will be with you. I will not abandon you or leave you alone. Be strong and brave. You must lead these people into the conquest of this land that I solemnly promised their ancestors. Make sure you are very strong and brave. Carefully obey all the laws my servant Moses charged you to keep. Do not swerve from it to the right or to the left, so that you may be successful in all you do. This law scroll must not leave your lips. You must memorize it day and night so you can carefully obey all that is written in it. Then you will prosper and be successful. I repeat, be strong and brave. Don't be afraid and do not panic, for I, the Lord your God, am with you in all you do.
How many times, Dana, how many times did the God of the Hebrew people tell Joshua to be strong and brave?
3 times, with exclamation marks. Not sure those were in the original Hebrew scriptures.
But perhaps the intensity was, be strong and brave, were the words given to the assistant, to the one who had to take up the work, to the one who came after.
Hold this. Remember this. Dr. King glimpsed the promised land. We are the children, the assistants who have come after.
Amen.
Good morning. I'm Judith Rue. My pronouns are she, her, hers. I am here to read the remembrances. But first we're going to begin with a moment of reverence, because we are called to find depth in our days and discover reverence in this hour. We seek a gentle meditation, reflection, and ardent prayer, each in your own way, called and yet all together. So as we enter into this space by hearing the lamentations, the requests, and the remembrances of our community, let us hear one another to heal one another. We light this first candle as a prayer for the healing of all who are struggling with COVID-19. Oh, sorry. I don't have to do that. Some in our congregation are wrestling with persistent coughing or lingering discomfort. May their healing be complete. May they be well. We light this candle to celebrate that Amy Brabson has had a successful surgery and is engaged in the work of recovery. Yes, thank goodness. May she be well. May all who have been hoping for her health rest in this blessing. We light this candle to celebrate the birthday of Wendy McNeil. Happy birthday, Wendy, who is here. And the last candle, I have to look up because it just got added. We light this candle in solemn gratitude that the hostages taken at the synagogue in Colleyville, Texas, has been reunited with their families. So may our listening inspire acts of love. Thank you.
Will you hold a moment of silence with us as we hold these remembrances in our heart, as we prepare for a time of prayer? We hold silence.
I am lighting a candle in my heart this morning for the celebration of my daughter's 18th birthday tomorrow. Becoming a mother truly strengthened my personal practice of prayer. It was in that becoming that I learned to take all of my hopes, wishes, and desires to cover my daughter, my babies, and say them out loud so that any and all things holy would hear them and answer my call, to say them silently to myself like an inner mantra that would imprint and guide me on this sacred role of rearing. I learned to seek and give thanks and gratitude for the most precious presence in my life. I learned to hold faith and appreciation in the meditations of my heart and mind. I learned to say thank you in advance with a knowledge and trust that all would be well. Every day, when I look at our lives, I see proof of the power of prayer, and so I am grateful to share this practice of love with you, my community that is the answer to my call. And so I pray. Dear God, dear Spirit of love and life that is present in all things, Thank you. Thank you for keeping us safe, happy, healthy, and together. Thank you for keeping us safe. Thank you for blessings, known and unknown. Thank you for the faculties of mind and body that keep us going in this life. Dear God of our understanding, thank you for the energy to wake up and get up this morning. Thank you for the people who have gathered in this sanctuary and on these screens to be the body of love that surrounds us all. Spirit of life, we thank you for the lessons of this life, the ability to learn and understand the science of this great Mother Earth that sustains us, our dependence and interdependence of her and each other, and the great loss that comes with our lack of understanding and care for her and each other. Dear God, thank you for the lives of those who were lost in your great storms. Thank you for bringing comfort to those grieving, hurting from the impact and grappling with the mystery of Earth's movement. Spirit of love, please come into us and guide us so that we may be moved to greater kindness and concern for the earth and all living things. Source of all things, bring shelter and grace to all those in harm's way. Shine your light even brighter on them so that we may know where to direct our love and healing, our energy and resources. Help us to be gentle, strong, and brave as we scale our own mountains and as we set out to create the world, the vision and the dream that Dr. Reverend Martin King so passionately shared with us. Help us as we journey toward that promised land. Help us to be the people that this world needs so that every child may thrive, every parent may provide, and every being, black, white, brown, tan, creamy, olive, mahogany, sun-kissed, saffron-kissed, every being knows that they matter. All these things we pray in the name of that which we hold most holy. Amen. Our prayer response follows a favorite hymn of Reverend Dr. King that was sung at his funeral. Precious Lord, take my hand.
Precious Lord, take my hand, lead me on, let me stand. I am tired, I am weak, I am worn. Through the storm, through the night, lead me on to the light. Take my hand, precious Lord, lead me home. When my way grows drear, precious Lord, linger near. When my lest I fall. Take my hand, precious Lord, lead me home. Precious Lord, take my hand, lead me on, let me stand. I am tired, I am weak, I am worn. Through the storm, through the night, lead me on to the light. Take my hand, precious Lord, lead me home. When the darkness appears and the night draws near and the day is past and gone, and the river I stand, guide my feet, hold my hand, take my hand, precious Lord, lead me home. Precious Lord, take my hand, lead me on, let me stand. I am tired, I am weak, I am worn. Through the storm, through the night, lead me on to the light. Take my hand, precious Lord, lead me home.
Lead us on, help us stand in body or spirit. 80% of what you offer will care for our congregation, and 20% will support our December and January recipient, Fort House. Forcing out recidivism through education or Fort House provides a healthy and transparent living environment for formerly incarcerated students transitioning through post-secondary education. Providing affordable housing and sustainability upon re-entry is paramount to the realization of their mission. More information can be found at njforthouse.org. You can text UUCM plate and your amount to 73256 to give. Mail us a check with Fort House in the memo, or simply place your gift in the offering basket. Ushers, please come forward. All your gifts are welcome. All your gifts are worthy, and they are received with love.
My name is Susie Roman Luna. My pronouns are she, her, hers. In this speech, treasured as his last, Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King begins by thanking his dear friend, Ralph Abernathy, with whom he had engaged the movement for civil rights, then explains. As you know, if I were standing at the beginning of time with the possibility of a general and panoramic view of the whole of human history up to now, and the Almighty said to me, Martin Luther King, which age would you like to live in? I would take my mental flight by Egypt through, or rather across the Red Sea, through the wilderness on toward the Promised Land. But I wouldn't stop there. I would fly through Greece and Rome and the Renaissance and to the time of Abraham Lincoln and more. But I wouldn't stop there. Strangely enough, I would turn to the Almighty and say, if you allow me to live just a few years in the second half of the 20th century, I will be happy. Now that's a strange statement to make, because the world is all messed up. The nation is sick. Trouble is in the land. Confusion all around. That's a strange statement. But I know somehow that only when it's dark enough can you see the stars. And I see God working in this period of the 20th century in a way that people, in some strange way, are responding. Something is happening in our world. The masses of people are rising up, and wherever they are assembled today, whether they are in Johannesburg, South Africa, Nairobi, Kenya, Accra, Ghana, New York City, Atlanta, Georgia, Jackson, Mississippi, or Memphis, Tennessee, the cry is always the same. We want to be free. Now we'll hear an anthem called King for a Day by Jason Shelton.
He had a dream of a world free of hatred and anger. He had a dream of a love beyond race, creed, or color. He had a dream and he gave it to me. What will I do with it? Who will I be?
I've got to stand up, shout and be heard. I've got to let my heart guide my words. I've got to steady my speed and say, what would it be like if you were king for a day?
He had a dream that all violence would one day be ended. He's free, oh free. He had a dream that our world torn apart would be mended. He's free, oh free. He had a dream
King for a day. Yes, if you could be king for a day, it's not really as glorious as it sounds. King, Martin Luther King Jr., didn't have a kingdom, a golden chariot, a long silk robe, an adoring public. No, he had a struggle, he had a conviction, he had a mountain to climb, he had jail, he had snarling dogs and police batons, he had doubts, he had fears, and he had only the raw conviction to steady him. He wasn't a celebrity. Sometimes we look back and we think he was a celebrity. No, he was widely disliked. And in his last speech, he told us about the mountain and about the way that he had ascended to the apex, and then he told us about the promised land. He had seen it, that promised land, but just like Moses, just like that patriarch of the Jewish people who was empowered by the holy to draw water from a rock, to glimpse the holy in a burning bush, to part the Red Sea, just like Moses from the Hebrew scriptures, Martin Luther King had seen the promised land, but he would not enter. Can you imagine? Just like Moses, who had spent his days convicted by a vision of a promise to come, he would not enter, but he would speak of its brilliance to his generation and to generations that followed. He would curl his beautiful words around it. He would make it sing so that we might see it too and know it as our destiny. He would shape it with images of a love of one another we could not easily forget, so that we too would yearn to be king for a day, not to be a celebrity, but to take up the struggle, to know the conviction as our own. And what was that, the promised land? What was it that King saw? The Seattle Times staff tell us that the promised land was where you did not have to march for your dignity. It was where you did not have to sing for your freedom. It was where there was no need for speeches to verify your humanity. The promised land was the sacred place where all of God's children would stand as equals on level, fertile ground. And King, having seen the promised land, gave his everything to seed it to some generation that would someday follow. Can we see the promised land? Can we feel the promised land? Can we know the promised land? I'm not asking if it's here, if we've made it. We know we haven't made it. That some would have us believe that a white supremacist riot where the American flag was replaced by the flag of a white supremacist demagogue was an act of patriotism, that some would have us believe that is proof enough that we have yet to cross over into any semblance of a promised land. It's not concrete, it's not yet, but can we hold it in our hearts so that it can call us to the struggle and to the work? That's our question. Can we hold it? Abraham Joshua Heschel, who marched with King, who was a trusted interfaith partner, from the Jewish tradition who loved that King grounded the movement in the Old Testament faith, in the stories of Moses, the stories of Exodus, of wilderness, and of promise. Abraham Joshua Heschel knew how necessary it was to glimpse, to feel, to know the promised land. He wrote about the prophetic experience, the experience of sensing a possibility, a potential, like the experience that King had when he said, someday, all of God's children will be able to sing with a new meaning, my country, 'tis of thee. Heschel wrote about the prophetic experience, contrasting it with the simple aesthetic experience. He said, an aesthetic experience like watching a beautiful sunset or listening to a grand aria leaves behind the memory of enjoyment. You had an experience and it was nice. But a prophetic experience, a revelatory experience, when something is revealed that is possible, that is transcendent, that leaves behind a memory of a commitment. Not only a perception, but a commitment. Revelation, seeing a promised land, something that might someday be, something that should someday be, is not an act of enjoyment. It is not nice. It is an act of conviction. When we glimpse, when we feel, when we imagine the way the world might yet be, our work is to commit right then to that revelation and to never let it go. When we glimpse the promised land like King did, it is like we are seeing, like we are feeling, like we are hearing the holy right here, not in heaven, but right here, pleading with us to do the holy's will on earth. Have you seen the glory? Have you seen the glory of the coming of the holy's will? I know its absence, its obliteration. I know lives stolen. Black lives, brown lives, close lives, far lives. I've known 2 times more black and brown citizens in this New Jersey succumb to COVID hospitalization, 2 more than white citizens, 2 times more. I've known children become statistics in the school to prison to recidivism pipeline. I've known black trans women memorialized year after year, the numbers climbing higher year after year, with this year marking the most murdered yet. I've known the intersections of sexism and racism and environmental degradation, migration and poverty and anti-Semitism and xenophobia. I've known these intersections to claim lives, lives, and lives. I've known this all so well that it can feel like a weight, like a hammer, like a Great Depression. And if I go about the work of justice with only these truths as my guide, every moment feels like a battle. And I exhaust myself before I begin. Heschel and King remind us that convictions, that commitments, they don't roost in the hell of this American obliteration. If I allow myself to see, to know what is broken, and believe me, so much is broken, but if that is all I attend to, I will exhaust myself before I begin. We have to see the promised land in a moment, in some moment. We have to feel the glory when something, some impossibility, when something is revealed that is greater, farther, further ahead, that is more beautiful. We have to feel it. We have to know it. We have to let it seep into us and be our conviction. I was marching on October 2020. I think it was on the day of Halloween. I think it was the 31st in October. And I was marching in Englewood, New Jersey, and the march was led by Ainsworth Minot. And the march was happening a few days after a Black Lives Matter protest there had turned a very dark corner, when Ainsworth and his dear friends, who had been marching there week after week in a peaceful and beautiful way, encountered a small group of people on their route who were having their own disagreement, their own fight, their own struggle right there on the sidewalk, on the street. And the Black Lives Matter protesters, Ainsworth among them, came up and tried to get them towards peace, to separate them because they were coming to blows. And the Black Lives Matter protesters were trying to heal this pain they were seeing right in front of them. And then the police came. And you know who the police arrested? It was the black men, the Black Lives Matter protesters there, who got arrested, who were trying with everything they could do to bring peace. And so we were there in October in 2020, and we were protesting what had happened just a few days before, right there on those streets. And we were walking a long march through Englewood to say that that cannot happen again. And we came to the place, to the sidewalk, where this unholiness had taken place just days before, and we paused in sacred silence, and tears came down. And I could feel in that moment that it was possible to heal what had been broken by standing there in sacred silence with tears going down and not losing that conviction and not losing that hope, and going there again to that same spot where that hell had happened and crying tears of healing. And I felt in those moments that it was possible. It was possible. And I glimpsed the promised land. That's what I need to hold on to when we do the work, when we go about the work for justice, the possibility that it can come in moments and again, that it can be with us, that we can achieve. Because who are we but the children of these moments of revelation? The promised land, once glimpsed, cannot be forgotten. It must live in us as conviction, or it is forsaken. That is the choice. The promised land, once glimpsed, once felt, must not be forgotten. Trust the times that you have seen the glory, the times that you have felt the possibility, known while listening to King's audacious words of a world where all would walk together hand in hand. Know that they were more than pretty words, that they were a revelation, that they were a prophecy. At the memorial service for Dr. King, his friend, his compatriot Ralph Abernathy preached, and included in the service were a litany of adoration to King's children, which said, "During these days you will be hearing over and over again, how great was your father, but we think of the four of you in this moment, Yolanda, Martin III, Dexter, and Bernice Albertine. We thank you for being your father's children, for without you, he could not have sustained his inspiration to struggle. Hear that now. It was his children that helped the mighty leader sustain his inspiration to struggle. Remember, the litany continued, that he spoke of building a better world for you when he spoke about his dream before the thousands assembled in Washington. So for your sake, we rededicate ourselves this day to the imperative to make the dream come true. We're not king's children. That honor is reserved for his lineage alone. But we are the children of his revelation, if we choose to be convicted even now by what he had seen. And we are the children. We are the children of James Reeb, in that we are Unitarian Universalists choosing this tradition of insight and honor that led the Unitarian Reverend James Reeb to Selma, that convicted him for the fight that led to his murder by white supremacists who hated that a white man would stand for black lives. Yes, we are the children of James Reeb when we choose to be convicted by what he had seen and what he sacrificed. When we go into battle, we must take that conviction, take the revelation, the visions of our glimpses of the promised land, because that is fuel enough to fire the work for another generation, because we too might not reach the promised land. But if we know it, if we fight for it, if we do not forsake it, if the children of this struggle will glimpse it in our striving, if we give our blood, sweat, and dignity, that is enough to seed it to the next or the next generation. May the promise come. Amen. Will you reflect with me? I ask, what have you seen and how has it changed you? What have you seen and how has it changed you? What conviction comes to you as a promise and how has it changed you? Our closing song is the Black National Anthem, Lift Every Voice and Sing. Please rise in body or spirit.
Ring with the harmony.
and watered. We have come, treading our path through the blood of the slaughtered, out from the gloomy past, till now we stand at last, where the white gleam of our bright star is cast. Not our wearies, not our silent tears, thou who hast brought us thus far on the way, thou who hast by thy might led us into the light, keep us forever in the path, we pray. Lest our feet stray from the places, our God, where we met thee, lest our hearts, drunk with the wine of the world, we forget thee. Shadow beneath thy hand, may we forever stand, true to our God, true to our native land.
Amen. Convicted by the times that we have climbed to the heights and glimpsed the promised land, let us march on until victory is won.
Our worship has ended. Let our service begin. Go in peace. Go in joy. Go in love.
It has been so good to gather with you virtually and hear worship team in person. Please go on and celebrate the legacy of Martin Luther King Jr. by picking up the work in your body, in your heart, in your mind, in your spirit. And with great gratitude for all who have made this service possible, including those we don't see, our tech team. Thank you for the great work today.
course, I left my gloves.
I think there's enough for Michael and Glenn if you want to also. There's 4 little bouquets. So one for Dana, one for Susie, one for Glenn, one for Michael. Yeah, you got it.
Glenn, your solo, your entrance was beautiful.
Oh, yes, it was.